Welcome back to the Real Resilience Podcast with Tanya
And Joe.
and Joe. If you are listening to us on Spotify and you like what we're putting out, please go to the About section and rate us 5 stars. It would mean a lot to me and especially to Joe, who is doing all of the post production editing and dealing with all of the technical shit. And let me tell you,
I'm mentally unwell at this point.
there's a lot of technical shit.
There's a lot of technical. Listen, I've said it before. I've said it a million times. I'm not Steve Jobs. I'm not a technical girly. I'm out here trying though.
Hey, I pay somebody to do it because my time is worth something and it's not worth trying to figure it out for 4 hours on Google and YouTube.
No, but we're here. We're doing it. And now we're back with our second episode. And we had asked, if people had questions or things that they wanted us to talk about. And one of the things that we thought we would kind of dive in on, which is how to find and build the right dream team for your salon. This person has an opportunity to create their own and they want to do it correctly. How do you build and grow to a salon the size of Oomph in a small town?
So I opened Oomph in 2014 in a town that had 30 other salons within a 2-block radius. I started off as 4 chairs. They were all booth rental. So I opened in June. By September, I had to add 2 more chairs and I started to hire on employees. So Oomph today is 4,000 square feet. Joe said before it's
2 floors.
2 floors. I have my own elevator. I try to get as much use out of it as I can because I paid a lot of fucking money for it. Like a lot. Any guesses?
No.
Okay, don't. And it's 28 chairs.
Which is incredible.
It's a lot. It's a lot. So how do you build your dream team? And I think that this kind of can go for any industry, not necessarily just beauty industry related. But one of the things that we can talk about is making sure that you are clear about your values as a business and your why. I think that's like the number one thing. What does because everybody thinks like, oh, what's your brand? And people are like, oh, it's this logo, it's this color, it looks like this. No, your brand is also your identity. It is how you do your business, how your culture is.
Clients feel.
Right. And so all of those things, it's like this all encompassing thing that you really need to be clear on before you start to hire people into your business.
Yeah, you have to have that vision ahead of time. And if it's you're focused just on the aesthetic of it all,
Or the clout.
the clout too, because I do think that a lot of times salons are started for the wrong reason. And that reason being, well, I was where I was, or I had a terrible boss, and I can do it better, and I'm gonna do it better,
and that's great.
Which is fine, because guess what? Like, that's kind of how I started things out. But if that's your only reason, you're gonna get lost in the shuffle of it all.
Right, because there's a lot more to building a dream team than just filling chairs. So what I say over and over again is that Oomph, the reason why I feel like we're successful is because I'm not just trying to fill chairs. Like I'm not desperate. I don't put that desperate energy out there. I want to make sure that I vet all of the people that are going to come work for me and that I'm filling in a role that we need. I'm hiring somebody that aligns with my values and our personalities. Like it's not about the money for me. No. I know that if I build my dream team and I create the environment that I want to create, that I feel really good to going to like work every day, that the abundance just comes. And I really do believe in that.
Yeah, I do too. And I've made hiring mistakes in the past for sure.
Haven't we all?
Yeah, and it's part of the territory too. Like as a leader and as a salon owner, like you don't know until you know, kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. So unless you run any other kind of business before, like hiring within a salon is a finicky thing, and making sure that whoever you do bring on does align with your core values, will vibe well enough with the existing team that it doesn't cause any rifts. Because one bad apple will spoil the whole bunch.
Yep.
It really will. That's all it takes. One person's bad attitude, one person's negativity, one person's, passive aggressive behavior to make people dread coming to work. And, as a leader, then you you are responsible for that and for carrying that and for taking the feedback from your team
Mhm.
and implementing change if that's what needs to happen.
So I think going back to that, I think so when we talk about this, we talk about, okay, understand what your why is, understand what your values are, hire those people, manage your expectations, right? So as we're hiring people on and we're trying to fill in the gaps or whatnot, like I was telling Joe in the last episode that we tried to record and then it didn't upload. It's fine. So here we are again. That you can only expect people to be 65% of what you are. And I think sometimes we as leaders, like especially in a salon environment with W2 employees, is you want to control so much because you have this vision and you want to make sure that the world sees your vision. And oh my gosh, like you get that one like bad review, the first bad review that you ever get, and your whole world falls apart and you're like, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I'm a failure. I really suck at this.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's not true at all. But you want to make sure that, like, you are relinquishing enough control that you're allowing people to use their gifts and that they're thriving and you're giving them the tools that they need, but knowing they can only be 65% of what you are. So I know that early on, I was like, complaining. I'd be like, I don't understand why they don't understand this. I don't understand why they don't think to wipe down their stations. I don't understand why, they're not calling their client. That was my bad. I should never have thought like that. People don't know. And sometimes like there's a little bit of hand holding, and that hand holding comes in the form of a handbook.
Yeah.
A handbook and an expectation sheet. So like when I hire people on, especially at the assistant level, it's like it's not a non-compete. I don't believe in those. But the expectation sheet says my expectation is that you're going to be at work 30 minutes before your first scheduled guest. My expectation is that you're going to clean up after yourself. My expectation is that this is the side work that needs to get done. You come to me if there's a problem, blah, 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 and they sign it. And then there's always a good reference point if I have to go back and have a conversation with somebody and be like, okay, we're like 30 days in, 60 days in, 90 days in. Communication will always be one of the hardest things that you can perfect in any industry, in any business. But having that reference point to go back to and be like, hey, you're not really meeting my expectations. How can we, go from here?
Yeah. We have an employee handbook too, and same, it goes through all of like the expectations. We also really outline what our values are as a salon and any business. I think it's really important to outline what your values are as business because you need your staff and your team to align with those values.
You want them to know so they can embody all of it.
Exactly, exactly. And, in salons, I think, obviously we're not hot business. A lot of us are figuring it out as we go, but having these systems in place is really a benefit to you to cover your ass. Should you ever have a situation where you need to let someone go and they're like, well, I don't understand why. And it's like, well, because you agreed upon the fact that this is how things are done here. This is what the expectation is. This is what the standard is. You agreed, you signed. Here's the date you signed. And you didn't abide by these for however long with however many chances, and this is the reason that you've been let go. So having that in place is truly such a benefit, and I can't stress that enough. I think every salon needs to have an employee handbook.
It is called boundaries.
Yeah, boundaries.
And in this industry, those lines get blurred a lot. Like we're people pleasing, we're nurturing by nature. I feel like most of the time, 95% of salon owners I've ever met are people who generally, or not generally, but genuinely care about the people that come work for them. And we're willing to go above and beyond and at the cost of ourselves, at the cost of our sanity. Like we do a lot for the people that come to work for us. So those lines get blurred. We're going out to eat, people were drinking after work together, you get invited to like family events, like they become a part of your family because we have such a social job.
Yeah,
But handbook creates boundaries and
it does. And going back to the whole like 65% thing, something that I have really struggled with in the past is the knowing that like no one on your team is going to care the way you do. You have to know that and you have to take that and just sit with it as long as you need to, because when you do get stuck in that mindset of like, well, why don't they sweep under their station? Do they not see the hair there? Do they not? It's like, it's not their baby. They didn't put down the risk you did. They didn't stay up for sleepless nights wondering about XYZ within the business. It is a job to them, and you maybe will find people that are super passionate about your salon and want it to thrive the way that you do, but you'll never have someone that cares about it the way you do.
Yep.
And you can't let it get to you. You have to train better and not lower your expectation of them, but kind of within yourself of like, what is feasible to expect from
You
someone.
have to relinquish that control.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, one of the things that really benefited me in leadership, this resource, I the first couple of years in business were really hard for me. My mom had cancer. My marriage was failing. My youngest son had broken his femur and was in a full body cast. So like for the first year of salon owning, it was brutal. And then again, creating close relationships with the people that worked for me when we weren't happy, like when there was stuff going on, like I didn't have those boundaries that I have in place now. And it just ate away at me. Like I felt like a failure all the way around. So I started seeing this therapist who blew my mind with this one resource. And I actually teach classes around this resource in my salon to help improve our culture. It's called The Four Agreements. Have you ever read it?
No, I haven't, but I've
Okay.
heard plenty about it.
You guys, it's $10 on Amazon. It's called The Four Agreements. And it basically talks about how as you're growing up, you're instilled all of these like moral values. You learn all of these things from your parents, the people that surround you, XYZ. But if you can kind of try to let that stuff go and abide by these four agreements, how it will change your life. I teach classes on this. We have a poster in the back room. This is, part of our employee evaluations. But the first one is being impeccable with your word. So, like, don't talk negatively about anybody. Don't talk negatively about yourself. Hey, learn to say no. People pleasers, learn how to say no. It is so empowering. I could go on and on. The second one is don't take anything personally because everybody's reality is so different. Like you have no idea what that person went through,
Yeah.
right? Before they came in, maybe they hit every red light, maybe they fought with their spouse, maybe their kid was being a tyrant, maybe they didn't have their coffee, maybe they didn't sleep well. So when they come in and they're like putting off certain energy, 98% of the time it has nothing to do with you. That plays into the third one, which is don't make assumptions. And I love to bring this one out in class. And I'm like, what happens when you make an assumption?
You make an ass of you and me.
Yeah, you make an ass of you and me, and it's so true. I feel like all we do is make assumptions about the people around us all the time. And then the fourth one is always do your best with the understanding that you're human. And I think like sometimes there's this expectation of me as an owner to be doing all of these things. And I think it's so important to tell my staff, like, I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
I'm human. I also have a life and I'm doing the best that I can. And I'm always going to see you for doing the best that you can do. And we will do this together until those, boundaries keep getting crossed or you're not meeting the expectations. Maybe I'm not meeting your expectations and then we just go our separate way. But that is a really important resource for building your dream team, I think, is abiding by the four agreements and understanding them.
I need to read that for sure. I think too, just seeing from an owner standpoint or a boss standpoint, if I see that someone's making a sincere effort, it goes such a long way. If I feel like there's passiveness or there's no real, for lack of better words, oomph to it,
Ooh, I like that. Little plug.
you like that? Then it's like, what are you doing here? Like, don't waste my time. You're wasting your time. And if there's someone else on the team that's gonna pour into this more, then I'm gonna pour into them more.
So that is something that I learned later on in my business life is the 80-20 rule, which is focus on the 20% of people that are doing the most for you, that are the most invested, because the 80% of people are just sucking your bone dry. There was a dirty joke in the last one, but anyways.
Yeah, we
Um, but those are people that are just they're an endless void. You can never fill them, give them what they want. And the 20% of people that are invested in doing it, they may not be making the money out the gate. They might still be learning, but they're going to be your biggest asset. So stop trying to waste your time on the 80%. They will eventually filter themselves out, right?
they will.
With good boundaries.
They will. And I think like, do you have the mentality of like hire the personality and train the skill? Because I think you can have, we kind of touched on this in our last episode, like you can have a technically great hairstylist or whoever on your team that can be really good at what they do, but if they have a piss poor attitude, if they're not a team player, if their personality just outright sucks, like they're not going to be a benefit to your team and to your business. I would rather have someone on my team that has a great personality, that wants to be trained, that is willing to learn and doesn't have an ego, and hone in on their skills and give them the tips and additional education and support that they need. You can't teach someone how to have a personality.
No. No, and it's hard to reset that as well.
Yeah.
Like people are stuck in their ways. So, as a quick recap, we talked about getting clear on our values, getting clear on our why, writing out our expectations so there's no room for interpretation, right? Creating clear boundaries. Now, let's talk about hiring. So, for me, I have a 4-step hiring process. I get people in to interview with me, then they either interview with my salon manager or somebody on my education team. Then they come in and do a job shadow. And like the job shadow is not just for us, but it's also for them because I don't know about you, but the amount of positions that I had taken in other salons, promises that were given to me. And then when I showed up there and I started working, I was just like, what the fuck did I do? Because I didn't know. Oh, we're so busy. We're slammed. Oh, no, there's no drama here. We're all like a family. Everything's great. And then you get there and it's like the tension you could cut with a knife in the salon, right? Toxic environment. So I think that the job shadow piece is super important for us and for them. And then the technical interview, like even something simple like a blow dry or a blow dry and partial foil, partial balayage, it really gives you an idea of what that person looks like. If they're willing to ask questions to, figure out something that they don't know, and it gives us 4 points of contact because as much as I'm the salon owner and the hiring manager and everything else, like this is my vision, this is like something that I've created, they work with my team as well. So I want to make sure it's a good fit. And there's like certain sides that people show me because I'm the owner that they'll let down their guard and show other people. I had interviewed one girl and I liked her and there was something that felt a little off to me. And then when she was like going around and like job shadowing and doing her technical interview, she kept asking a lot more like other pertinent questions that I felt like showed a lot more about her character and then kind of like showboating how much money she makes at her current location, the benefits that she gets. And I was like, is she actually in there trying to recruit my team or is she trying to get a position here? Like it was very unclear.
Yeah, which is it?
What is it?
People are so interesting, to say the least.
It takes all kinds. It does. It just wasn't a good fit for my business. But yeah.
No.
So 4 points of contact before I'm even creating an offer for somebody.
And I think that that's great. And I think a lot of people want that like instant, just like satisfaction of knowing like I sent a resume and I'm eager, I want to work there. Like, give me the spot. But it's like taking the time to make sure that it's a good fit is really important to make sure that you do build the dream team that you want and you can kind of feel people out.
Right, but also I've had people that have come in and been like, "Oh, I've been a big fan of Oomph. I love it, blah, 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 blah." I'm like, "We're busy. We see over 1,000 clients a month." Like, you might come in on a Tuesday morning and it's kind of quiet, but if you're here on like a Friday afternoon, if you're here on Wednesday from like 5 to 7, it can be chaos in there. And I've had people come in and do the job shadow piece and been like, I love you guys. You're a fan, but I just don't have the right energy for this. This is too much. It's too chaotic. It's too loud. Totally get that.
Yeah. And you need to know too, like, what is your energy at the salon and what kind of teammate would be best for that? Like, if you are a hustle and bustle, like, go get a team and you guys are busy and whatever, like, you need people that are problem solvers. You need people that are good on thinking on their feet and can work under pressure. If you're a slower, smaller environment, then maybe those things aren't so make or break for you because they're not as necessary for that particular environment. So that's something to keep in mind too when you're building your team.
Absolutely.
That for me, I would say is something that I really think about when I'm hiring people is like their personality, their work, da, 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 but also like, can you think on your feet? Can you problem solve? Or do you rumble at the second that something is like an inconvenience or something goes awry, because like we're working with living human beings and there's an ever changing essence to that. Like you have to be able to kind of think on your feet in this business. I think in most. Yeah. If you're not a problem solver, like it's kind of tough for me to like take you seriously in the environment.
Right. But I think in a lot of ways, the world has changed a little bit.
I know we talked about this before on the last episode, just like generationally, there's like this difference of so many things. But I I know you and I like sidebar talks about this like problem solving, how to figure something out. If you have a question about something, if you can't figure it out on Google first, like then you can come to me. But if I'm putting out mini fires all day long, it's a detriment to the business. It's not helping anyone. Like you have to learn, and it doesn't do much either to like continuously just on a silver platter be like, here's the answers for everything you're ever gonna need in life.
Just I think you enable people like that.
Yeah.
If somebody is constantly asking for, I mean, I love it when people ask me for help because I think it takes a lot of courage to ask me because I'm a strong personality for help. And I love it when they come to me. But if I'm constantly helping you, I'm not helping you. I'm enabling you and I'm not giving you the power to make decisions on your own. And the thing that I've learned is like I've had people like that where I just keep giving them the same tools. I keep giving them, the pat on the shoulder, the you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. And I've wasted their time and I've wasted my own time because it was like failure to launch. Like they were never going to get out of that mode. And like, sadly, I had to let some of those people go and it's for the best and they don't see it when it's happening. And I never want it to come across as personal, but it's like, okay, I'm doing you a disservice. This is not the right environment for you. I love you. I'm sending you off with like the most kindness and well wishes. And then seeing them thrive in a different environment is like, chef's kiss. Like I knew that you had it in you. I just couldn't be that person for you anymore. But again, that just comes down to like what your expectations are and like making it clear to other people.
It is. And it's like the mama bird kind of pushing the baby out of the nest, right? Like sometimes you gotta do that so that they can fly. But I think especially where so many stylists now have the goal of eventually becoming independent. Like you do have to problem solve, you have to think on your feet, you have to still be a team player, all these things, but you need to develop those skills if you want to be independent.
A whole other podcast.
We're
gonna get there because we've got some good stuff to throw on that one. Yeah.
But that's also a question I always ask in my interview process. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Do you think that you long term want to be an employee? Do you see yourself as having a goal of being a booth renter? Do you see yourself as owning a place of your own one day? Like, what are your short term and long term goals? Because if I have someone whose goals don't align with my business, it doesn't make sense for me to bring them on board.
It's just a waste of everybody's resources. So, sidebar, going back to that, because I think that we missed on this, is like when we're talking about our why and what our vision is for our business and the expectations, I think too that when you're considering hiring on and having a dream team, what kind of model do you have? Does it make sense for you to have a 1099 model? Does it make sense for you to have a hybrid model? Does it make sense for you to have a W 2 model? And a 1099 employee is not a real thing.
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. It's like a unicorn.
It doesn't exist.
And not like a magical unicorn, like a bad one, because it's just, yeah, false. Anyways,
again, another
episode. So getting really clear about the kind of model that you want to have, because I think like when we talk about dream team, there is a little element of like control. There's a little bit of, having a handbook and having rules. And with 1099s and with a hybrid model, those values get diluted. It's hard to enforce them and it leaves a lot more to interpretation. So I think that that can be to your demise if you're trying to build like an actual long-standing team.
Yeah, it definitely plays a role. And in thinking of like a hybrid model, like I have a hybrid model now, and it works. And I've been lucky with some of the booth ventures that I've brought in, but with not having that kind of like control of the renters, like they are just essentially they're renting that space, that booth, that room, whatever from you to run their business as they see fit. And you don't have the control really to say, you can't have that on your station. We don't want you to do it this way. Whatever,
You can't work those hours.
you can't wear this. You can't, none of that applies. So if you want to really have a very specific vision for what your salon is going to be, a hybrid may not be the best model for you.
Right. So then going into, we've talked about values, why, expectations, how to hire people, creating that kind of culture. How about keeping them inspired and giving them a growth plan? So you can hire anybody on that you want and you're going to invest in them. But in order to keep them long term, like you have to give them a little bit of something, right? And I think a little bit of education goes a long way. So in my salon, we do meetings every 6 weeks. And in those meetings, we very rarely do housekeeping because I think it's bad for the culture. But we do a lot more like team building activities, which is always fun, gets everybody together. Um, and then we do education classes, and we do those a couple times a year, either bringing in outside educators or something within my own, education team. Because I don't care if you're new in this industry, it's the middle of your career or the end of your career, you need that inspiration always.
Yeah. And I love that. I love team meetings. I'm not the best at team meetings, and especially because I have such a small team that it's just a little different. What I do try to focus on is at least a monthly touch in with each person individually and try to talk about a 30, 60, 90 so that we're always kind of thinking 30 days, 60 days, 90 days in advance what you kind of want to focus on, what are your current like weak points or struggle points, what tools we can use or like what additional support is needed to help get you to the next goal and to help elevate yourself. So I do at least try to do these check-ins, these touch points. But where we are still like we're just we're not a 2-floor salon.
Yeah, but you don't have to be.
You
I
don't
think
have to be.
having those check-ins is important.
It is.
Having the team building, because if you want a team, a dream team, you have to do that. You have to be part of a team.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to come in and meet outside of the hours that you should be there, those are not the right people,
Yeah.
right? Because they just want to come do their job and leave, which I totally respect. I get that 100%. But if you're trying to build a dream team, you need to have check-ins. You need to have team building activities. You need people to work together cohesively. We have a level system at oomph. So we have an assistant program. I found that it was really hard to hire people with experience. So when I'm mentoring people and they're like, "How do you hire people with experience?" Because wouldn't it be wonderful if somebody just came in with a full clientele and you didn't have to bat an eye and they were just out there killing it? That's not going to happen. It's very rare for you to find somebody with a full clientele that is going to come into your business and want to work there, unless it's some kind of like booth rental or hybrid model. And even in those cases, I find that when people are really comfortable where they are, they're not going to leave. Change is really hard. So what I had to do early on in the life of oomph was I had to create an assistant program, and I had to pick people that I felt aligned with my business, that I felt like were malleable, what's it? That word, like Play-Doh,
Yeah.
like you could just work with them or whatever to make them, or not make them, but to encourage them to be the best version of themselves, right? That would like fit in with your business and would grow with your business. And I think like if you hire people on and they're there for a couple of years, but you don't give them anything, like there's no carrot, there's no growth, they're going to feel stagnant, they're going to feel uninspired, that it's going to start to feel boring coming into work, and they don't know where they're going to go. And then if they see some shiny new salon open down the street who's offering them 2% more commission and you're not giving them a plan of growth, they're going to leave you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that, again, this is another conversation we will definitely get further into, is the commission comparison problem that happens within this industry. And I think as an owner, being transparent too about, this is what our commission structure is, this is how you can achieve higher commission, this is where we max, and this is why, because of X, Y, Z, and we provide, for you, I know you have such a strong education team. there's a price that comes with that. Like, you have to take it from somewhere. It doesn't, the funds for these things don't just come out of thin air. But
I think saying like, oh, this is a max, there shouldn't be a cap. So if you have like a booth, if you have a booth rental 1099 business model, there is a cap on the amount of income that your business is going to generate based on the amount of resources that you have. So if you have 8 chairs, you can only, however you swing it, like basically only hire 8 people, and that's your cap. So that's the most amount of resources that you can give. In a W 2 model with a level system, there's expectations, right? There's benchmarks that that employee has to hit in order to move to the next level, but they're continuing, even if their commission doesn't change, they're still making more money because every level comes with a 10 to 20% price increase. And that's all based on KPIs, benchmarks, whatever you want to call them. But there's no cap on the amount of levels that they can jump. And then as they continue, moving up into the level system, there's more benefits available to them. Like in my salon, it's more paid time off, more flexibility with scheduling. They can make up whatever schedule they want. Within, I need you to work 100 hours a month. You can build your schedule however you want. There's health insurance, life insurance, but yes, that money has to come from somewhere.
It does. I think more so thinking of, I think stylists specifically get so caught in the commission percentage that they don't think about the other things, like, okay, well, yes, so like as a set whatever, you can't go above a set commission rate or else you're not going to be able to make a profit. But
Not even make a profit, but keep the lights on.
Exactly. So it's the understanding of that from a stylist standpoint, but also the transparency of our commission is this to this, but we also have these level systems, and then we also have this implemented so that you can achieve, X, Y, Z, and get, the big paycheck that you want. But kind of knowing what your commission structure, what your growth structure, what your level system is like, what are those points in which you start to rise up are important conversations to have, and an important system for you to know before you really start the hiring process.
Yep. Having systems in place to be able to implement, again, going back to expectations, going back to boundaries. Yeah. I thrive in transparency. I love transparent conversations. Please do not omit the truth from me. Like, I can handle it. Brutal honesty. I love it. Yeah, just do it.
Because the thing is too, is when we withhold truths in the name of like care, it fucking hurts so much more when it comes out. It hurts so much more, and it can be such a bigger detriment than just being forthcoming in the beginning. Right.
All right. So then let's talk about the last thing real quick. And we can definitely talk more about this on another episode when we talk about how to plan for a walkout. I think it's important to talk about that because that's something that happens. You should always be expecting to lose some of your staff every year. So this is why having like a good hiring system put into place where you're not always hiring, but maybe every quarter you look and try to bring like 1 or 2 more members onto your team and trying to figure out how that works from a training perspective, but firing people. So in order to keep a dream team and to keep the energy healthy and the culture healthy and everything like that within your business, rip the Band-Aid off. Mm-hmm. If it starts to feel icky, the 80% of the people that are not doing it, if the bad apple comes in and starts to spoil the bunch, you need to nip that in the bud. And I think oftentimes in people pleasing, because of the industry that we're in, ripping that Band-Aid off feels like losing a limb. Yeah. You're like, oh, I don't want to do it. I see so much potential in them. If they are a detriment to your business, you have to rip that Band-Aid off. Again, you're doing yourself a disservice, you're doing them a disservice, and then it starts to like cloud everything else within your team.
Yeah, it mucks up the waters real quick. Yeah, and you sometimes it's like you don't even see it until it's so far gone where you're like, oh, shit.
Did you not see it, or were you just kind of making concessions? We all do it. We all do it. And you learn. Sometimes you don't know until you know, right? But letting them go, having that handbook is important. I know that New Hampshire is an at-will state, so you don't really need a reason to let somebody go. But I'll tell you from my own experiences, and I know that Joe can speak on this as well, is like having a handbook, making sure that every single time you have a conversation with somebody that you're documenting it in detail.
Document.
Right. For a lot of reasons. Like you pay into an unemployment insurance account, your rate goes up if people are constantly like filing for unemployment. So having that in writing, like, oh, I met with them on this date and we talked about this. I met with them again on this date and we talked about this. Like if you've never had to fire anybody and the state comes to you, you have to fill out a form that says all of that stuff. And then they determine if that person's eligible for unemployment or not. Or God forbid, somebody file a complaint against you.
Yeah.
I had a complaint filed against me in November 2022 that was, I can't get into it for legal reasons right now, but it included having to bring my lawyer on board because it was pretty detrimental and it was something that had to get sorted out. But now having like all of the information that I had, all the documentation to be like, this is my case against them if this ever goes to court.
Yeah. And same, and I won't get too into it for, again, legal reasons, but I
1, 2, 3, 4, 5th. I plead the fifth.
I can't stress enough having documentation and having things to fall back on, because unfortunately we live in a time where if people feel slighted, hurt, jaded, they will do whatever they can to retaliate.
Yeah. So I think that wraps up this episode.
Wrap it
How
up.
do you feel?
I feel like if you want to build a dream team, you got to know your shit. You have to have a business plan. You have to have a growth plan. You have to know what it is that you're looking for within your culture, what your values are, and you have to be steadfast in that. You cannot sway.
Boundaries.
And you got to have boundaries.
Right. So listen to the episode. If you love it, again, go to the About section, rate us 5 stars, give us a follow. If you have any questions, anything that you want to know about, slide into our DMs. We're always happy to help. And this was the Real Resilience Podcast.
We'll see you on the next one.
Bye.